Is it on?
You can see the red.
It's not lighting up. Wait a minute. Is this one?
It's lighting up.
Is this one? Oh, I see. I only need one mic. Yeah. All right, let's call the Boost Board meeting to order. Were there any minutes from the prior meeting that we need to review or approve? Okay. Maybe we can do a double meeting minute approval at the next meeting. Okay. I don't know if Nicole or Donna, if you want to walk us through the application process and timeline this year.
So this year's Boost online application was done through a new vendor. We've previously used a vendor called Zengen, and this year we're using a new vendor called Submittable. You can see what the front-facing application looks like on the right-hand side. So it's branded with MSCE and leads parents through a series of questions. We've gotten good feedback from parents and schools that it's very easy to use and easy to understand. The application period this year was opened on May 11th and was closed on June 30th. We received nearly 5,000 applications over that period. Next year, we plan to open the application earlier. As with any new process, new vendor, new application, there's some time to work out the kinks to make sure that it was ready to go for parents by the time it was released. Our new online application features a portal for parents and a portal for schools, so parents can log into their account, look at their application. They can see, they can message us through the application portal, as well as email and phone call. Applicants can also request to edit their application if they've entered a child's name incorrectly or the birth date, or they need to change the school that their child will be attending in the fall. They can request to edit that. We receive a request on the MSDE side that the parent is asking to edit, and then we can allow them to go in and change some information. Parents are also able to see the progress, that is where the application is, if it's in review, if it's accepted or complete or denied, so the parents can also see that on their side. Admins on the MSDE side, we are able to view activity on the application, when messages were sent, timestamps of activity, when the parent edited, when it was accepted. So it's helpful to see a history of application activity. This year's vendor, Submittable, conducted an automated review of the federal 1040 tax forms. That process historically is very laborious and takes a while for staff to go through and look at each 1040. However, Submittable has developed an automated process for that that looks for certain fields to determine household size, dependents, and then adjusted gross income as well. It's not a new automation for them, but it was new for us to have this process automated. It reduced staff time and helps to eliminate the propensity for human error when looking at adjusted gross income. There are, however, applications that still do require a manual review. Those applicants that use the alternate income form require staff members to look at those forms. And if the applicant uploaded a 1040 that was difficult to view or blurry, or it was a picture from far away, then Submittable's automated system flagged that for us to review, and then we would review it manually as well. So generally, we're very happy with the vendor this year. It's really streamlined the process. So yeah, that's our new application process this year.
With the 665 incomplete applicants that were listed on the spreadsheet that you sent out last night, Could you maybe just give us a little bit of flavor for what the outreach was to those applicants, what the time to correct was?
Sure. Actually, the next slide talks a little bit about the application process timeline. So from May 11th to June 30th, the application was open. We held 3 customer service sessions for parents. They were recorded, and they were posted on the Boost webpage for parents to go back and view those recordings. We also held Q&A sessions for parents. 3 of those were attended by a Spanish interpreter, so we had bilingual support there as well. For applications that came in and that were incomplete, at the beginning when they were coming in a manageable rate, we were able to catch them right away and flag them and say, oh, you forgot to send us your list of dependents, please attach that as soon as possible. We were able to review that on an ongoing basis. The last week of the application window, we received an influx of parent applications, so any of those that were flagged for incomplete, we messaged them within a day or 2 of them sending it in, and we gave them several days to turn in a complete application following specific feedback on what was missing. So for the month of July, we were receiving messages from parents asking exactly what do I need, what is the 1040 form, what is missing. So there was a lot of one-on-one customer support through messenger, email, and phone during the month of July to try to get those applications completed.
Are there any applications that you're still actively working on with families to try to resolve any outstanding issues in terms of their data, their submission, or anything like that? Or is it effectively closed now?
There were parents that we messaged that their application was incomplete and they were not responsive. We reached out again. We tended to send 2 messages at least to those parents, and so if they haven't responded at this point, then we're considering that application just simply incomplete. That's why it was included in that list of 600 or so.
You said that there were 5,000 applications. Is that because you didn't consider the incomplete and ineligible in that 5,000?
We are considering those. Total received. Those are students that submitted, and whether they were incomplete or ineligible, we're including that total number.
Yet it says the grand total was 7,000 something?
I have to look.
I think you had said 5,000 at one
okay.
point, so.
Maybe I got my numbers.
Okay.
The last month has been an influx, so I misspoke. Then it was around 7,000 total.
I understand now.
I think nearly 5,000 was the eligible
Right,
applicant. Yeah,
absolutely.
you're right.
Do we know what the comparable number of applicants were last year?
It was, here, go to your slide. Was that the next? Oh, that's right. Well, this doesn't speak to the numbers. I don't have that
I do.
data in front of me, but we do have it.
You want to keep going and I'll look for it?
Sure. Jim, are you able to pull up the number of applications received last year? The number, I think it was around 6,000.
Yeah, I don't think that's the actual, well, probably, I can try. I'll let me try, I'll just let you know when I'm that good. I don't know if I have.
Nicole, how many more slides do you have?
There are 15 total.
Okay.
So throughout the presentation, I'll touch on last year's data, and then the second half is all new application data results.
Generally, it would be helpful to be able to get the slides in advance of the meeting,
Okay.
along with the data that we got last night, so. Why don't you proceed with the
So there were
slides?
a grand total of 6,000 applications last year.
Okay.
During the month of August, MSCE will alert applicants of whether they were ineligible, exceeded the income eligibility, and as well as the results of today's meeting. Here's a comparison of appropriation from last year to this year. Last year, the appropriation was $10 million. We carried over $520,000 or so from the previous fiscal year. Total available in that case was $10,520,357, and we were able to spend nearly all of that. We spent $10,438. We have a $10,438,000. We have around an $80,000 carryover. So for fiscal year 2024, we're coming into the year with a $9 million appropriation. We're carrying over $82,000 from fiscal year 23. So our total available for this year is $9,082,000. This is a summary of award data for fiscal year 23. This is not applicants received. This is award data only. Initial awards, we made in 2,768 awards, and we were able to extend an award to 533 additional students that were on the wait list. The value of all base awards, including initial awards and waitlisted students, was $7,920,000. The value of all high school awards combined, there was an additional award of $3,000 per student that was enrolled in a high school. That total was $2,325,000. And the value of all special education awards for students was over $700,000 at $751,000. So total award value offered to students was $10,996,383. That is all of the awards that were offered, not those that were dispersed. So of the total award values that were offered, there are students that withdraw or that their school situation changes from the time they apply to when the school year starts. So the total value of accepted awards was $10,980,000. There were around $542,000 of adjustments, that is tuition or financial aid adjustments, students who transfer or withdraw from school. So the total funds that were dispersed for last year was $10,438,298 with a carryover around $82,000 into fiscal year 24. So application data for this coming fiscal year, 2024, we received a total of around 7,036 applications. Of those applicants, 1,630 of them exceeded the farm's cutoff for their household size and adjusted gross income. And 665 of those applications were incomplete as of July 29th, as of a couple days ago. So out of those applications, there are 4,741 that are eligible. That means that they do meet the farm's cutoff for their household size and income, and those applications are complete. Any questions about what we've gone over? Okay. So here's a summary of application data for eligible. This is only for eligible students, those that have a complete application and that are farms eligible per grade and special education status. In grades 9 through 12, there's high school students. 123 students are special education eligible. That is that the parent indicated that their child receives special education services, and they also uploaded a form of documentation to evidence that. As you know, the school has to confirm this once the school year begins. We haven't gone through and looked at each document that the parent uploaded. That review hasn't happened. So right now, this is just parent reporting special education status. And then those that did not indicate special ed, 1,026 students. So total high school applicants that meet eligibility is 1,149. Kindergarten through 8th grade students, we received applications for 269 students that parents reported that they received special education services in school. 3,323 that did not report special education. So total students for kindergarten through grade 8 were 3,592. So again, the total applications received that are eligible and complete are 4,741. This next slide shows a comparison of total applications received that are complete and eligible by status as being renewal. That is, that they received the Boost scholarship last year versus new applicants who are brand new to the Boost program. We received a total of 2,395 applications for renewal students. That is, again, those that are complete and eligible. And a very similar number of new applicants as well, 2,346 new applicants to Boost. So of those renewal students, 1,191 of them are originating from a non-public school, and they qualify for free meals. 414 of those students are originating from a non-public school, qualify for reduced meals. 596 of them are coming straight from a public school, qualify for free meals, and 194 of those students are coming from a public school and qualify for reduced meals. Those are according to their farm status. And on the new applicant side, there are 846 students that are coming straight from a non-public school, qualify for free meals. And 492 of those students qualify for reduced meals, coming again from non-public school. And from the public school side, 724 of those students qualify for free meals and are coming from a public school, and then 284 are also coming from public and qualify for reduced meals. Any questions about this data? Okay. So of those renewal applications, as you know, in legislation, it states that Boost, the priority this year will be renewal Boost students and their siblings. So this shows renewals and their siblings who are considered new applicants, but connected to their Boost sibling. There were 2,395 applications from renewal students and 239 applicants from the sibling of a renewal student. And the breakdown for non-public school and farm status is here as well. This chart shows special education status by renewal as well as siblings, and then broken down by the school they're originating from and their farm status as well. So total of renewals and siblings whose parents indicate that they qualify for special ed, it's 268 students. 258 that are returning Boost, and 10 students that are siblings of those Boost students. The next slide shows data by grade level band. So these are all for, again, students that are renewals and their siblings that are complete and eligible. So for renewal students, 1,768 of those, 76 of those students are coming from kindergarten through 8th grade, and 619 of those students are coming from a high school, or will be enrolling in a high school in the upcoming school year. And on the sibling side, 29 of those sibling students are entering high school, and 210 of those students will be in the lower grades. So these are some considerations that we'd like you to consider for this upcoming school year's Boost Award amounts, considering prior Boost recipients and their siblings, that category of students, the Special Education Award, as well as the High School Award. Last year, high schoolers received a $3,000 Boost Award, additional award apart from their baseline, and the waitlisted list of students. These are some areas that are open for discussion.
Nicole, the legislation didn't change in terms of the special education
No,
requirement.
it's still a $700,000 funding for special education students.
But it has to be as much as their award.
Their previous, yeah,
Right.
their base award.
Are there any more slides?
Our contact information is here, but that's all the slides. So we have more descriptive data for you. If you'd like to discuss that, you all have a copy of that as well.
Can you pull this up?
Sure.
There's none of our committee online, correct?
Garrett is online and he's on,
No, I mean, is there anybody from the committee that's, I know that Dr. Grasman couldn't attend, but,
No.
okay.
Everybody's present. Okay. Thank you.
Here we are. You're welcome.
So I just want to make sure that I understand kind of everything that's on here. So if we renew to everybody who received a scholarship that remains eligible, that's 8,555,800. Is that correct? I think that's kind of in the middle of the page, the renewal total and the all eligible students.
Yep, 855,800, yep.
Okay. And then if you go down to eligible students, renewals, and siblings, where it says new total, the 1,252,900, those are the siblings of the renewals. And if they were to receive the award to which they are eligible as determined by MSDE, that would cost an additional 1,252,900. Okay. And that number plus the 8,555,800 means that we have eligible awards to renewals and siblings that exceed the appropriation by 808,000. Okay, but that doesn't reflect the $82,000 carry forward. Okay, so maybe it's 720-ish. Maybe. Okay. And then flipping over to the special ed, are those, that 383,289 to the negative, is that in addition to the deficit? All right, that's already in the deficit.
That's offsetting, that would be your actual deficit. So what we did here is, in the past, we've done this as well. Historically, the number of students who are actually eligible for special education services as determined by the school is about 6% of total. This, the parent identification represents about 10%. So if you take only 6%, you're reducing your deficit by the difference between 380, well, I guess it would be 425, 411. If you wanted to account for that likely available funds in your decision-making.
Okay, you kind of lost me, Donna, to be honest with you. So,
Normally, 6% of children
no,
are.
I get that part, but I
Okay.
guess what I'm trying to figure out is, on the front, do these include the special ed awards?
They include the actual special ed awards as identified by the parents.
Okay. And then when you go to the back, like, which would be like the third major table, this is an adjustment that you've made based on historical norms.
Correct.
Okay. So my question specific to that is understanding the 6%, and there's some basis for that, you know, in terms of like past evaluations. Does that 6% hold for renewals as opposed to like new applications? Because I would think that the people who've been in the program for a long time or multiple years would probably be less inclined to make that mistake in terms of their application and eligibility. And I would think that like a big driver of the historical percentage might be people who had applied who didn't get it, or people who applied who were new. So I'm a little concerned about the
Yep.
possibility that like maybe that's more of an offset than it should be, but
You could be right about that. I think that our historical perspective has been overall, not new versus renewal, but, and you're right, the perspective could be skewed by new applicants as opposed to renewal, but the historical trend is that at the end of the day, 6% of scholarship recipients are also receiving special education services.
and then one last question, and I'll open it up, just stream of consciousness, keep the thought bubbles going. What has typically been our rate of erosion from renewals to like actually converting it to a renewal? Because I know we still probably lose some people in there.
Right, so I did not do that calculation for the same reason that you're suspecting your concerns about the special ed data, because if all of these are renewals, we typically have, like, I did the math on 23, it was like 5.2% of students who received a scholarship did not enroll or dropped out, or for whatever reason, that was your return of funds as a result. So I did not do that data because of the fact that the priority is renewals, and I would assume that if, for the same reason you were concerned about special ed data, is why I didn't do that. We can look at it. It's about 5%.
I guess my concern there is just that if the rates in terms of the uptake historically have been renewals plus new applicants, like it's a little bit different this year because our new applicants are siblings and their families are going to be pretty familiar with the program. So I'm worried that like the historical washout or uptake rates aren't going to be good
Right.
for this
Right.
group of students and families. So I do think that we probably need to look at that a little bit more closely, just to see if we can kind of differentiate what the rates were
Yep.
for
Yep.
renewals last year. Like, if we lost 5 or 10% of the renewals last year, like between award and then we didn't pay that scholarship,
Right.
that's going to be pretty valuable information to
Yeah.
figure out how far we can stretch the 9,082,000, because it looks like we got a little bit of a gap.
Yep.
So,
I just, you doing, am I doing? I hope-
Yep, you did it.
Okay,
You're
good.
on.
I just want to make sure I'm clear on the numbers. So on the second page with the grand total of 721,400, that is for the new and renewal for special ed, right?
Adjustments, correct. That's that is the amount that they would receive in addition to their base award.
So I'm still trying to understand the numbers. So we have 700,000 that can be allocated for special ed.
Has to be allocated.
Has to be, and so is that a minimum? We could go over that amount?
By law, you can.
Okay. So I'm just make sure I understand. So the 721 is over the minimum of the 700 that we can allocate. Okay, so we don't have a set number. We can go
Above.
over. Okay, all right. And then of that 721, of that 82,000, that's the carryover, is a certain amount of that allocated to regular and special ed, it's
Yeah.
just a straight carryover?
Just a straight balance.
Okay, so it doesn't matter what it's at?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
It would be helpful for me to know what, in terms of the legislation, exactly what we are required to do, because I know that that's changed, and I didn't print it out to bring it, just to understand the minimum requirements that we have. I don't just, and if we have the right dollars to meet those minimum requirements.
For special ed?
No, overall, because we're talking about renewals and siblings. Are we required to award to all renewals and siblings? Is it that we start with renewals, then we add siblings? Like, that's, I want to understand exactly what our obligation is on that.
Okay, you ready? The Boost Advisory Board shall prioritize awards for current Boost recipients and their siblings, and a student shall receive no less than the fiscal '22 base award amount. Sure. Ready? The Boost Advisory Board shall prioritize awards for current Boost recipients and their siblings, and a student shall receive no less than the fiscal '22 base award amount.
So, sorry.
Nope, you're
I
good.
believe that I'm hearing it correctly, that it does not distinguish in terms of siblings. Typically, there's been a free, reduced, coming from public, coming from non-public, there have been different priorities. That language sounds like it does not address any of those. And this may be a question for across the way to just, again, I just want to be clear on what we have to do and what.
So the language in the statute regarding free and reduced price meal eligibility has not changed. The priority of public school versus private school or non-public school was a Boost board priority. Well, I guess in the very beginning, the priority was for students coming from a public school, such that, yeah, I don't believe that was ever in the statute, though. Yeah,
But
it's free and reduced price meal.
just in terms of what we have to do first, right, is award the 855, 800 renewals.
Right.
And then really after that, we have a little over $500,000 in appropriation left that we can apply to siblings and/or base award adjustments.
Or new?
No, well, we don't have, yes, after we've done siblings and new.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What is the requirement again on the special ed adjustment? How much are we supposed to do in total?
Okay, ready? Further provided that $700,000 of this appropriation shall be used only to provide an additional award for each student with special needs that is at least equal in amount to the Boost Program Scholarship Award that a student is awarded in accordance with paragraph 6 above. And paragraph 6 says the Boost Advisory Board shall review and certify the ranked list of applicants and shall determine the scholarship award amounts. The Boost Advisory Board shall take into account the needs of students with disabilities on an individualized education plan or 504 plan when determining scholarship award amounts.
But on the renewals, the 855, 800, the special ed adjustment is 686, 900.
Correct.
So we're actually 13,100 under the 700,000 special ed adjustment.
Correct, and we have been in that situation before, but we have awarded twice the base amount to every student with a disability. And when asked by DLS or others about that, you know, the question we ask back is, would you like, you know, I'm not sure how you'd like us to handle this, that we've made an award, double the amount for every student
Yeah.
that qualifies.
Well, it looks like probably just to the extent if we add any new students this year, as long as there's one more
Right.
that has a special ed, maybe two, we'll probably hit the 700,000 on the original awards. It's a technical point, but I just want to make sure that we're.
Yeah,
doing
if you're
everything
looking at
in
the
compliance.
slide on the special ed adjustments, the original data shows that of the new students, there's only 10. The renewals get you real close to 700,000, so.
And there hasn't really been pushback, recognizing that we're doing our best to meet the,
No, I mean, not that I, not from DLS that I recall.
thank you.
So your calculation is that we would award 400,000, a little bit over.
If
That
we
includes
did all the
siblings.
siblings.
We did all the siblings, but that also gets us to the 700 mark for special ed.
But it gets you in the hole for total.
I'm sorry?
You would then have a negative balance,
Of,
and can you scroll up, Nicole?
Well,
It's an over award by 808,700.
oh,
Well, not of 800, 700 and,
It's 34.5, because if you take out the siblings, it's 686.
the 686.9 is already in the 855, right?
right, I'm saying if you look at the very bottom of the first page, the total award shows that if we awarded to all renewals and all siblings of renewals, we would over award on the 9 million, and then we still have that $60,000 cushion by 808,700.
Yeah, but just the special ed is there's only 10 new special eds, so it's 34,500.
Oh, you're saying if we only awarded to siblings who qualified for the special ed adjustment?
Yeah, I mean, I think the first thing is, we're getting a little probably ahead of it, but if we looked and saw where they fell on the list, we'd figure out how far we got down the list on the siblings and whether or not we picked up a couple of special ed students and whether that put us over the 700,000. MSD would probably have to dig in on the list a little bit more to figure that out.
Can you go back and say what that last part is to figure out real quick?
So if we awarded to all the renewals, obviously,
Yep.
and then we were to award to the new eligible siblings, and you have your ranked list, how far do we get down the ranked list?
Oh, right, okay, yep.
And when you go
Yep.
down the ranked list, let's say we pick up, 50 students.
Okay,
Do we pick up any special ed in that 50? And just kind of doing it that way, do we get over the 700,000 or not? And if we didn't, then I think we would have a decision to make as to whether or not we would move a couple of the special ed students up to get to the 700,000, or we would just say, methodologically, we stuck to the ranking, we doubled everybody who was eligible, we didn't get to a point where there were enough special ed eligible students that we got to the 700,000. And something tells me that it's unlikely anybody would kind of realize that, at DLS or in the legislature. And if they did, we would have a good answer as to why we did what we did. But, okay.
and what is the timeline for actually making these awards? Because now as we get to August, school starting almost, when will people be notified? Once we determine who's going to get the money, when will they be notified? How long is that process going to take?
In order for the awards offers to be finalized, the school year has to begin and schools have to confirm that those students are enrolled there. So we're anticipating the first checks going out at the end of September, beginning of October,
And when would families know that they're getting an award?
in August.
August?
Can I also ask another question? I, again, just want to make sure that I'm clear. We had a policy, at least I understood, making a distinction between, even though it's not in legislation, between public and non-public school. Is that policy still in effect as we make these decisions? And if we did have one between free and reduced, if that's a policy, is that still in effect or not as we do these rankings?
So as the relative gray beard on the boost board,
And we're in trouble, but okay.
so the distinction on the free versus reduced, that's just an income determination. On the distinction between public versus non-public, there were issues of students coming from public school settings who were broadening the opportunity like they had not been in a non-public school setting before. And in the first year, and I guess Elizabeth and Skip can kind of add to, amplify, contradict this, the idea was that it would be more difficult for those families coming from public school settings into non-public school settings in terms of cost and retention. So the awards were set higher for those families, and they were renewed at the same level to sustain enrollment. The applicant pool was relatively small at that point in time, and there were an abundance of applicants of incumbent students who were already in private school or non-public school. And those students, because they were already in that setting, the base award amounts were lower. So if you came in as a public school student, and you had the higher award, you maintained the higher award so long as you remained eligible and remained enrolled. If you were already in a non-public school, you could maintain that award if you maintained the eligibility, but it was at a lower level. And over the course of time, the public school students had higher awards and there were fewer of them. And the students who were already in non-public settings, there were more of them and they had lower awards. I think
But I
a lot of,
And I believe that to keep with the statute, when we did open up to new students, it's free coming from public, free coming from non-public, free, reduce,
first.
all public first? I thought
It
we had to
was-
stay in the rank.
It was next priority, those coming from a public school who qualify for free meals, and then next those coming from public school who qualify for reduced price meals, and then the non-publics.
So public, both free and
Was
reduced
priority.
prior to non-public.
Yes.
Yeah, and I think part of that was trying to discern the intent of the legislature about the legislation.
So just having done a little bit of math here, if we do all of the renewals and then just the first category of siblings,
Oh,
which is
yeah.
a total of 513,500,
Plus 189. Oh, you just want the public free?
if just the first category,
Uh-huh.
we are just under the allocation plus the carryover. Our allocation plus the carryover is 9,082,060, and that would bring us to 9,069,300, which is super close, but,
We know there's some erosion.
right.
a little bit, yeah.
That gives us all of the special education, right, that's all.
That's everybody at the numbers that, at the highest number that they might be awarded based on this chart.
And only for the free and not the.
And it would just, right, so we are capable of doing that at all the current levels, but that's really all we could, I mean, we've got another,
Yeah. And in that line, the 68 students that total 513,500, there are a projected 28,500 in special ed awards, which would
Put us
take
over
us
that.
above
So that's the
700,000.
700,000.
Right.
Yeah.
They want us to turn our mics on.
Okay. We were just saying that if the new public free eligible students, the 68 students with the $513,500 cost were awarded scholarships, that would keep us under the $9,082,000 appropriation, and it would put us above the $700,000 special ed adjustment requirement. Does MSDE agree with that?
It would put us, yeah, yeah. That's what the math says, yes. Here, do this.
and we would need to have about $150,000, no, sorry. I think, well, we would need to have a fair amount returned, 160,000, in order to be able to satisfy that next category in a second level of awards, if we, you know.
So that could be the recommendation, is that when the returned money is known, that would be the decision rule as to how to allocate it. Because I think our interest is always in spending all the money.
Absolutely.
Right.
Yes.
So then we would be, the next category would be the non-public free.
Would you please mind getting closer to the mic so our virtual participants can
So
hear?
we're doing the public free and reduced, and then we have some left over. So then the next level is the,
We can award all renewals. We can award all siblings of coming from all siblings who are coming from public school
right,
qualifying for free.
That's
We
what-
cannot yet award any public that public siblings of renewals who qualify for reduced lunch.
Well, that's-
We can't yet award them.
that's what I'm saying, our next step. So, but for the money, we would do some contingencies, is my only point for, because we don't know who's.
Not to make this any more complicated, but I do want to raise another issue. In the 665 that were incomplete, do we have any sense of how many in that 665 were renewals?
And I'm going to raise another concern, which is where I thought you might have been going with this. So we have done our best due diligence to confirm renewal students. As you know, parents are completing these forms. In many cases, they're very quickly completing these forms. And last year, you completed the form, and Stephanie was her name. And this year you completed the form and her name is Steffi. And last year you gave us her correct birth date, and this year in your rush you put today's date as her birth date. So when we are trying to use different pieces of the data to confirm that this is in fact a renewal, it's a process. So I would offer this suggestion. Let us do a couple more tests on these renewals. Let us also include the incomplete applications in that analysis, just to make sure that you actually would have funding to go to sibling public free.
On the initial application that the families fill out, do they provide the children's social security numbers?
The last 4 digits, so we can use that also as a,
And then you're matching it with the 1040, which includes dependents and their social security numbers.
In some cases, it does, and in some cases, those children are not on the 1040.
And we didn't have that data last year, so if we had 2 years of it, we could use it, but we don't.
And what would your estimated time be to do the additional research and analysis you've just proposed? How long will
week?
that be?
Yeah.
A week?
We can get
A
it,
week?
at the most.
And I only ask because I'm just concerned about getting the letters to the families as soon as possible. As we're bombarded with back to school.
So, I mean, let me, this isn't a proposal, but, you know, maybe it will be. We approved the 855 renewals, pretty straightforward. They're eligible, MSDE's determined it. They get preference, that's the first cut. Then I think what we have to decide is the second cut. Is the second cut a review of the incomplete and ineligible to see if there are any actual renewals that are kind of buried in there, that like they made a mistake, it's still being corrected, they haven't data checked it enough? Because historically, there's been a preference for renewals, and the legislature's been clear about that. That's always been our policy. We've been generally permissive about letting people correct application deficiencies. And in terms of the constituencies out there, if somebody was actually eligible for a renewal and there was an administrative issue, like we've usually kind of let them in. So like the step 2 could be like really scrub the incomplete and ineligible and make sure we didn't miss anybody.
So the ineligible is income ineligible, so I would argue that that test has been completed.
Okay, well then, if it's just the incomplete, I'd run incomplete to see if it was anybody in there that would actually be a renewal. Because I would think that even if you send them 2 emails, you know, that's a potential pain point. If somebody's been in the program for 4 or 5 years, there's a mistake, and then suddenly they're out. In the past, we've generally been pretty accommodating of those.
Mr. Chair, if we did do that, though, going back to your point of timing, I would just want to put some time certain when that subset,
Yeah, well, I mean, is that what you're saying, is a week?
deadline in there.
Okay.
And having gotten some of the emails in the past, have all families that were determined to be income ineligible been notified that they are income ineligible? Because, and when I say gotten some emails, in the past, there have been some disagreements as to that determination. And so
They have not been messaged yet.
I think we need to do that before we confirm that we're going beyond, before we completely determine who our renewal category is, because if there's a family that has a legitimate reason why they think that can demonstrate that they are in fact income eligible and they're a renewal, I think we have an obligation to that family.
But there are 1,600 ineligibles. I don't know that, I mean, there are people who may be $12 over the threshold, and then there are people, I think that 1,600 is a big number, and I don't think the majority of these ineligibles are going to be eligible.
I agree, but if there are 2 and we exclude them, then we haven't done our job. Do you know what I'm saying? You know, if
They already did the scrub based on their adjusted gross income. Is that the determination for income?
If they submitted a 1040,
Yes.
we did not do the review. That was done by the vendor, which was a huge lift for staff. I think, what did we say the other day? That in the past, staff would have had to review all 6,000 applications, and this year,
We annually reviewed about 600.
Right.
Those were the manual ones
I-
that you did.
And I'm not saying to review any of it, I'm just saying that I think before we go to the, beyond the,
So you're saying,
Renew-
write to the families, I want to make sure I understand, write to the families, say you are, we've conducted a review, and based on the eligibility requirements, your family income exceeds the eligibility. And 45 families write back and say, but we are eligible, and then a drill down on those 45, or whatever the number is?
and I think that we have an obligation to at least let them know
That they're not.
that they're not eligible
agree.
before we go to the next category in case there's a mistake somewhere.
Okay.
You know,
I mean,
maybe it's one of the relatively difficult to read 1040s, and an 8, you know,
those were done
was a
then.
0 or something like that.
But those, they reviewed.
Correct, again, it may be 2.
Yeah.
It's not going to be 1,600, but in the past, there have been some concerns, and I don't want we are likely to award so close to the bone that I don't want MSDE getting emails after all the money's out, a parent finding out for the first time after there's no more money, that when they thought that they were eligible for a renewal, they're being told they're not because their handwritten 1040 wasn't read correctly. You know.
I agree, and I think, though, there should be a deadline for people to respond if they think there's an error. So if the letters go out on August 5th, I'm making that up, August 12th, whatever day, they have a week to respond.
I agree.
Because they're holding up a lot of, yeah,
The rest of the whole.
yeah.
And now they can look on the portal even, right?
But
So
whatever
those-
they do, whatever the thing we're gonna send, whatever it is, there's a deadline so that we can keep going down.
Have to keep moving forward.
That's really what I'm concerned about, because these people need to know that they're getting or not getting
Right.
dollars.
Are you getting any inquiries yet from people about their status of their reward?
We've been receiving those questions since May 12th.
Oh, I see.
So, yes.
So, I mean, all right, I think we're generally in agreement. Could move forward on the 855 renewal, because we think they're eligible, they got all their stuff in, they were timely, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I don't think
Is-
it takes it away from anybody. Then the second cut would be do a reasonable review of applicants just to make sure that there weren't kind of eligible renewals, that there was an administrative issue. And
In the incomplete, you mean?
yeah, and that's like a 1 to 2 week process, not even, according to Donna. And
You
then,
don't have any faith.
no, I can't, I mean, when you're just shaking your head, I don't know what that means. So,
At least she's not doing this
I
anymore.
said it wouldn't be 2 weeks.
You said a week.
okay, I said a week to 2 weeks, but I
Okay.
mean, like, we were talking about a review, and we were also talking about potential notifications, so
Right.
giving you a little bit of a hedge.
Appreciate you.
Okay. And then if we pick up anybody in there, we'll see how many people we pick up, but the next cut is to go as far down the new sibling public free list, which takes us almost to fully allocated.
Right, and I would say that we just start by just authorizing to stick to our same pattern, and make the awards. Typically, I think everyone, I think we can say absolutely you will not get an award to anyone who's new and not a sibling. But and I think it is highly unlikely we're going to get very far beyond the free siblings, a little bit maybe into the public reduced siblings, but I would advocate for that language that you send out, which says highly unlikely, but, you know, if funds become available, you'll get it to the siblings.
Concurrent with that is the review that you talked about earlier of the
And have you ever had renewals come back as not actually renewals?
Say that again?
Yes, parents who indicate on their application that they got Boost last year and they actually did not. We've already cleaned, that took a week manual, that was done on a manual review basis, us verifying each student, all those discrepancies. And so that data, that clean data is reflected in what you're seeing.
So you're as confident as you can be that everybody who is classified as a renewal is a renewal. Are you equally confident that everyone who is classified as new
It's not a renewal.
is not a renewal?
I would like to say, I want another crack at this data.
Okay.
And the only thing I also just want to make sure as we get the stuff back, that, because it was the 10% versus 6% on special ed, I just, with whatever we get back, to make sure we've met our requirement for special ed in whatever way it has to be made.
It
Matt.
looks like we will.
It looks like it, but
Yeah.
whatever data we get, I want to make sure we do not
Yeah.
fall under that. Even if it meant, for example, something had to be.
Well, I don't think I'm comfortable authorizing MSDE without coming back to us to tinker with the order over that.
Yeah, no, all
But
I'm
I'm-
saying is what I want, when I get the information to look at, I want to make sure that I'm clear on that piece of it, because that's one of the requirements, legislative requirements, so that's a big deal to me.
No, I agree, but I don't, in terms of what we're proposing, I'm not comfortable leaving that open to not coming back to us.
I'm not,
I think she just wants to know what's the trend, is it 6% or 10%? Is that
right,
right?
I want to make sure that we meet the, because if it's, it might be this time, a larger number that aren't special ed. What I want to make sure, as we talked about at the beginning, there's certain legislative mandates. One is that it gives us the 855. The other mandate is that we hit the 700. All I want to make sure is in however we ultimately do it, we meet that. And I'm assuming that we'll meet it, but what if something horrific happens and we're below? We may have to look at another way to meet it, and that might be in increasing something. I don't know, but I just want to make sure.
So, number one, move forward on renewals as soon as we can. Number two, review the incompletes to make sure we didn't miss anybody who was eligible, and do it within 1 to 2 weeks. 3, after we've maybe picked up 1 or 2 or 6 or 7 additional eligible renewals, they get folded in, then we see how much money we have left over. And with however much money we have left over, we award to the new sibling public free. Right?
The only thing is that I think at the number 2 level, we also notify everyone who's been determined to be ineligible.
After the review. Or we send
Why
a
don't-
letter?
Yes, after the review.
But that happened before we make additional awards, because if any of the ineligible are renewals, they need to get their money before we open up to the siblings.
We'll alert those that exceeded the farm's income that they've exceeded, and if they, will put in the message that if they believe this was an error, please respond as soon as possible so that we can, with a deadline.
Not
Yes,
soon as
with a
possible.
deadline.
Okay.
Right.
And then we'll also be looking again at incomplete applications and reaching out to those families as well.
I mean, for the incomplete and the ineligible, aren't we most concerned about renewals?
Renewals, yes.
So like in terms of those 2,200 applicants, is there a way to sort them just on renewals to get a subset?
Yes.
Okay. Do we want to further specify that we're just focused on the incomplete ineligibles that are renewals? Because the new applicants, doesn't
wouldn't
matter.
matter
We're not gonna
anyway.
get to them
Right.
anyway. Okay, so on the number one, renewals. Number two, review the incomplete and ineligible that are renewals and make sure that we're rock solid on those. If we find a mistake was made, we bring them into the awards. If not, they're out. And then, number three, to the extent there is remaining appropriation, it's applied to the new public siblings free. And that should take us, it should take the award total to the appropriated level. And then to the extent we have slippage or erosion, or people don't maintain their enrollment or whatever, some other changes, if there's a little bit of money that can be reallocated, you can let us know, and we can go from there.
Would that be like in November probably, right?
I think it would probably, they have to certify enrollment by the end of
So
September.
it would be October.
So in October, you would know. And really, at that point, you have until, by when do all funds have to be committed?
December 15th.
Okay, so we would have time.
Is there, and I don't know who's online. I know at times MSDE has found it helpful to use the networks that CAPE, the Catholic schools, or the Jewish schools have in terms of reaching out to get information, to get the messages out. Is there any way in which it would be helpful, useful to provide any of the information or to get any of the backup from those organizations at this point?
I think that by directly reaching out to each parent, I think that we'll be able to make contact. I don't anticipate we'd need to send student lists out to umbrella organizations. I think we'll be sufficient messaging them.
Okay. I just didn't know exactly where they've been most helpful in the past.
So do we need to vote on these three items? This list?
If so, I make a motion.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think, I know it's in print. I think it's important just to make sure that the minutes reflect what the demand was this year, because it was so extreme.
It was 18 million.
18 million for 18,250.
Yes.
For 9 million, yes.
Yeah, so there were 2,346 new applicants who were eligible, and we're now looking at being able to give awards to 596 of those 2,346.
20%, not even,
Yeah, so I just think it's important for that to be in the minutes.
I think so, because there's a shortfall of almost over $9 million.
Correct.
Yes.
Almost, yeah,
Probably more if.
Or if you add, yeah.
yeah.
I-
Okay, so the motion is proceed with renewals at the estimated 8,555,800 level. Perform an accelerated review of the incomplete and ineligible applications focused on the renewals to ensure that there weren't opportunities to cure, correct, or include those in the base renewals, and then award to the new public free eligible siblings. And based on the numbers we have from MSDE, this would, in all likelihood, exhaust most, if not all, of the appropriation that is available. And we will get a report back in October if there are any remaining dollars to be allocated or any other considerations that should be brought to the board.
That's my motion. Thank you,
Okay.
Mr. Chair.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay.
We had somebody on the, do we have somebody to vote on the, online? Okay, just us.
No,
Okay.
it's just Dr. Grasmick.
Okay.
And Matt, do we have an open seat?
We do.
Okay.
I was just wondering if we need to meet again this calendar year, or when the next meetings would be, so that we could plan accordingly?
I think it might be good for us to plan for something after that October notification, which we could cancel if we
Right,
don't need
and
it.
I just go back to the year where we were sort of meeting almost felt like on December 20th or something, which is not fair to the staff, and so maybe we should try and get a meeting on the calendar for November. Does that seem reasonable?
Sure.
Do you want to set that up now, or do you want to communicate offline via email?
I'm fine with trying to get a date now.
Yeah.
We're all here
Except Dr. Grasmick. But
pending Dr. Grasmick's availability.
Um, Can I propose like the week after Veterans Day? Like, maybe either the week of the 6th of November, or the week of November 6th?
That would be better for me. I'm out of town the following week.
Me too.
So I think the 10th is Veterans Day,
Right.
and the 7th is Election Day. I don't know who has elections right now, but how about the 8th?
Okay,
You want to say, does the 8th at 10 a.m. work for everybody?
yes.
Okay. So if you can send out a notice pending Dr. Grasmick's availability for 10 a.m. on November the 8th, we will hold that date if the board needs to meet to contemplate additional adjustments or awards. Yeah. Okay. So this was a helpful document.
It's very,
Not to harp on it, would be even more helpful to get it in advance, along with the slides. And would also appreciate, anything that we provide in a format like this, that we have the historical data as well from the prior year, so that we have an understanding of what the trend is, year to year. Okay. Is there any additional comments, questions, concerns from the board?
I
please.
just wanted to say thank you to the staff. I thought the information we received was excellent and made it much easier to make these policy decisions, so thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
appreciate
you for
that.
sharing the information about the backroom services that you're using. I think that is really important, and the fact that you're pleased with the vendor, I think, is good for us to know.
Okay. Are there any, I'm sorry.
And thank you, Nicole. Welcome, Nicole.
This is a good meeting, good first boost meeting.
Are there any staff questions or comments? Okay. Are there any public questions or comments?
Rabbi,
I'll start off by just saying that it's a huge thank you, staff, board, support staff, the folks, Jim, Justin. I mean, it's overwhelming to the body of information, the numbers and everything. But I can tell you, I was just somewhere that I hadn't been for a while, meeting with some people, friends of mine from a long time ago, and a guy came over to me and he said, "You changed my life." I said, "What do you mean?" He said, "The Boost program has changed my family's lives." So I said, "Well, I'm going to be at a meeting Monday morning, and I will share that with all of you, because it's not me, it's all of you." Thank you. Thank you for the time, for the effort. The new system seems to have worked. Nicole, we had to wait a little bit longer, but, you know, seemingly, as you mentioned, cut out hours of information going through the tax return, so kudos all around. And,
Good job.
Thank you. And next year, we'll get a head start and we'll get information out more quickly. And so I appreciate the comments. It will be even better next year.
Yes, I think you mentioned that the window would open earlier next year. I think once you know when that might be, it would be helpful to share, because then our collaborators in the umbrella organizations could begin to alert the schools. And also that might be actually coming out when schools are sort of still in session too, which would be helpful.
Yeah, thanks.
Want to come up on the record?
You can come up wherever you'd like, Garrett.
I wanted to get this down on the record before Justin escapes because he's busy. Yeah, sure.
You're on.
There we go. Thanks. Garrett O'Day with the Catholic Conference, Maryland Cape, and hopefully an honorary member of Agudath Israel by now. Yeah, we had some, I just want to point out, there were some complaints about the applications being a little bit late, but I think maybe by the overwhelming demand, and it seems like more new applicants than ever before, I think it worked well to have it around the tax return time, or at least the application fall within the time that the taxes were due, so that actually worked out pretty well. But I just want to first talk about the application streamline and thank Donna, especially Nicole too, with all the work you did this year. Justin, Jim, everybody else who I'm missing that we don't see behind the scenes. Just fantastic experience, customer service wise, for the parents from everything I heard, so thank you so much. They have a real commitment to customer service right now here at MSD, so and seem to have invested significant resources in the Boost program, so I think that's really important to note on the record moving forward. Just one last thing too, if I may. The meetings here are very technical, a lot of dollars, a lot of numbers, right? But I just want to talk about the impact that you all are having on parents. They came out in droves this year in the legislative session to make sure we had a Boost program. Not only coming down to Annapolis, making calls, but over 70,000 emails and calls from the separate Boost parent support network. So just a huge, huge, overwhelming amount of support. And they got a Boost program, but I think it's already been pointed out in the record there was about 18 million in need, and that's double what the program was allocated for. So our request on that is that hopefully the documentation and report to the legislature could reflect that, both from MSDE and the board, that there was in fact double the allocation and demand here, and as many new applicants as we've seen in the past, as far as I can remember over the last 7-8 years. So thanks from me really doesn't mean that much, but I just for somebody speaking on behalf of the parents and kids, especially the kids, thank you.
Great, thank you. Were there any comments or questions online? If you can check the chat box. Okay.
There's no questions typed. Everyone right now online is muted, but if you do have a question or comment, it is Daniel Thompson says thank you. There don't appear to be any questions in the chat right now.
Absent anybody
I'm going
else?
to chime in because Ariel and what's his name both commented. So
Garrett?
Him too. Okay.
over there. Hello.
We can hear you.
Hear you.
Okay. Hey, this is Dan Thompson. I just I appreciate. I work with Ariel and just the care all around with the ACSI schools, and we appreciate your work in helping the allocation for our students. And I too would join in Garrett in saying the demand is great. And I know I've got some new families that have applied that sounds like won't be getting allocation, but just appreciate what you're doing, and hopefully things will continue to grow.
Great.
Thanks, Dan.
Thank you. Okay, does anybody want to make a motion to adjourn?
I move we adjourn.
Second?
I never do seconds. on adjourning or motion, so, but I'll vote yay.
I'll second.
Okay, all in favor?
You
Aye.
don't want to be second, huh?
Meeting adjourned. Thank you.
Or motions.
Thank you,
Never
everybody.
do the adjournment.